Hey everyone. Hello.
Hi, Deb.
Good to see you today. I love this class because I love asparagus.
Me too.
Good recipes for you.
Hi, Deb.
Hello. How are you, Susie?
Good. I'm staying off video. I just finished a workout.
I can appreciate that. I can appreciate that. But I am happy to see all of you who are on camera. That's really nice. I am grateful.
Hello.
Hello, Loretta.
Hi. Oh, let me undo it.
I was just about to cut a piece of butter and put it in the microwave before you got here. So I'm going to do that while everybody is coming in. And that's going to play into our first recipe. So nothing like butter and asparagus. So is everybody starting to have some nice spring weather? Yeah, it's great, isn't it? Hey, how's lunch, Jeannie?
It's good. I'll admit I had an appointment and it's near a Chick-fil-A, which I'm not close to at home. So
You have to take advantage of those things.
I know I used to only be able to get it when I was going back east, but I haven't been traveling because of COVID. So
you're looking for a way to get your Chick-fil-A fix, and hey, that's a good reward for going to did you say the dentist?
No, it was a personal appointment.
Oh, personal appointment. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to get started here. Before I do, let me just ask you if there's anyone here who's brand new to Get Set Up before we start. Okay. And is there anyone who's brand new to my classes? Okay. Well, then welcome back, everyone. It's Old Home Week. So now I will share my screen. And you should see Spotlight on Seasonal Ingredients, all about asparagus. Give me a thumbs up. You got that? Perfect. All right, so let me expand my screen so I can see you all. We are going to talk all about, I like this, focusing on one thing and talking about it and then getting into some recipes. I have some fun ones today. Like I said, asparagus is one of my favorite things. So my name's Deb. You know me already, and that's great. I'm here in York, Pennsylvania, and it is asparagus season here. So my farmers in the vicinity all have asparagus, and I'm lamenting that 3 years ago I didn't say, oh, go ahead and put that asparagus in the garden bed. I wish I had my own to cut, but I don't. So you all are just the epitome of the perfect Get Set Up learner. You're here with your cameras on and your mics ready to be unmuted, and we do learn best when we can see each other, talk to each other, and we're all about learning from each other. I do want to welcome people who are here on live stream. Thanks for coming. It's great to have you, and it would be even better if you registered for a class and came to join us in the conversation. All the folks who are in this class get access to the recording of this class afterward if you would like it by emailing help@getsetup.io. And I want to introduce you to Max up there, and he's in my corner anyway. He's waving. He's our technical support person. So if there's any issues at all that you would like to discuss with him as far as your audio or video is concerned, please reach out in the chat box. And I see that he is already busy in that chat box. So he's welcoming everyone. And I do see that, Paul, you said you're new to me. So thank you, Paul, for coming. It's really good to have you. And I hope this will be the first of many classes with me. So Max is also going to keep an eye on the chat, as I have to be honest, I have a lot of moving parts going on here in the kitchen, and I would never want you to feel like you were being ignored. So if for some reason you put something in the chat and either Max nor I get a chance to see that, or for whatever reason, please unmute yourself and say something to me. I don't care if you say, excuse me, I'll be happy to be interrupted for that. I just don't want you to feel like I'm not attending to whatever is on your mind. Here's our agenda for today. And this is one of a set format of classes that I've created on favorites, or on seasonal, not favorites, on individual ingredients. So they all kind of run the same way. We talk a little bit about some fun facts you might not have known, a little bit about the nutritional benefits of the particular item, food item that we're going to talk about, and then how it's grown and harvested, because, you know, we've gotten away from our agricultural roots in a lot of ways. And it's nice to connect back with that and understand a little bit of it. There are lots of people who are gardening maybe for the first time after the pandemic. Is there anybody here that's in that position? It's just kind of vegetable gardening, found their way back to it or started it? Yeah, Mary, what are you growing this year?
I live in North Central Florida, so we've gotten an early start. So I've got some really nice cucumbers coming along. I've got zucchini. I got tons of herbs, tomatoes. Oh God, I have fruit trees. My blueberries are getting ready to pop. I really am very, very lucky here.
You are blessed, that's for sure. And I always tell people in my Healthy Meals on a Budget class that in the summer or in the growing season, if they're looking to save money on food, they should find a gardener, because when we garden and it's the height of the season, we often have way more than we can consume. So we're happy to give some things away. And so you may be in that place too, Mary, I don't know. But anyway, gardening is fun, and we learn a little bit about these things and how they're grown and harvested. And then we get into some recipes and some ideas. And I try to prepare at least one recipe in a class. So I'm curious.
I know it's not gardening, but I've enjoyed just getting into mowing the lawn again.
Oh, how about it? Just smelling the grass. Look, I see
Right.
Paul. Paul is shaking. Is that Paul? Paul is shaking.
Yes, I agree. I love mowing my yard. Something
Yeah.
about a man and a mower and machine going. Oh,
Well,
it's
I'm not a
awesome.
man, but I can.
Yeah, you got me on that. But
We can both. I hear that is like a, the gene goes both ways for the mower. So.
oh, okay. Yeah, I would take
Well,
that. Yeah.
Well, I grew up on a farm and I was a farmer's daughter. So I'd rather be outside than in and do stuff outside. However, I don't want to garden. I've got stuff around my trees. I got flowers and stuff and around my house, and that's enough for me to take care of. And my kids are like, why don't you have a garden? I said, because I don't want one. It's too much. My sister has one of these. It's up high. Their son made this, and you don't have to bend down on the ground. It's up higher. This
That's
garden.
what I do. I do either container gardening, or I have one that is chest high because I can't bend anymore.
Right. That's what
I
they
set
did.
up on concrete blocks with planks across to put my containers on, so I don't have to bend over for that.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay. Well, sounds like gardening is alive and well, and I think we've got some gardening interest groups going on, and some how to grow microgreens class happening. So if you want to explore, check that out. And when you search for classes to get set up. So let's get started with asparagus fun. I always like to find those fun facts. And this one isn't so fun if you want to grow asparagus. It does take 3 full years to get to a full harvest, which is why, I kept putting it off. And now every year I say, well, really, do I want to wait 3 years? So anyway, 3 full years to get a full harvest. And then the second thing that I find interesting is this whole idea that when we eat asparagus, within a very short period of time, there is this unusual thing that happens when we use the bathroom, right? We get this asparagus pea smell. So what is that all about? Have you heard of this? Have you experienced this?
Uh-uh.
Is there anybody who has not experienced it?
Me, I am not.
Okay,
Not
Kathy.
that I know of. I mean, I don't know.
So you are an example of something that is a genetic trait that is called specific anemosia. That means you are unable to smell something that is in fact there. So the fact is that unless there may be a teeny tiny fraction of the human population that doesn't experience this breakdown when we digest asparagus, but mostly there may be up to 50% of people who can't detect it. And the reason is because they have this genetic predisposition to specific anemosia, can't smell it. So I thought that was a fun fact about asparagus. So something for you to take away and talk about, well, maybe not at dinner, maybe not at the dinner table, but maybe over cards or something. Chickens happen to be really good asparagus farmers. So how so? When you create an asparagus bed, asparagus does not do well in competing with a lot of weeds. Nevertheless, it does grow rather densely, and it's hard for us to get down there, especially if we have a hard time getting down. It's hard for us to get in there and weed around the asparagus. But chickens are super good at that. And once the asparagus gets to a certain height and sturdiness, they are able to get in there without destroying the asparagus, and they scratch away and they will get rid of those weeds. So chickens are really good for that. But you have to, word of caution, you have to be very careful, because if you put a chicken out into a bed with tender vegetables that you're trying to grow, the vegetables will be long gone in instants. So here's another fun fact about asparagus. China outproduces all other countries by far. And actually, the US production of asparagus is minuscule compared to what China raises. So very interesting that there is a lot out there coming from China. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty particular and try to look for my asparagus to be, if not locally grown, US or Mexican grown. And lastly, this is a phrase that Caesar Augustus used back in the day, the Roman days, way back, there was the delicacy of asparagus. And he coined this phrase, which essentially means faster than it takes asparagus to cook. So when he barked it at his soldiers, what he was really saying was, get a move on. So that is just a little bit of trivia about asparagus, a few fun facts about asparagus. So let's talk a bit about the nutritional value of asparagus. And it is really very nutritious. It's also very low calorie. You can see that for 100 grams, which is about 5 spears, we've got 22 calories. And in those 22 calories, it's packed with 42% of the daily allowance of vitamin K, which is an important vitamin for us, and 37% of our day's allotment for B9. So you can see that there are other lesser amounts, but highly nutritious in those areas. And then in terms of minerals, it provides us 18% of our daily allowance or daily value in copper, and 11% in selenium, which is a very important mineral. And we don't always get that in a lot of the foods that we eat. So it has been shown to help fight cancer. It's an important part of a diet if you would happen to sadly ever have to deal with that. It's a good way to boost your nutrition, boost your diet while you are fighting, or while we may be fighting cancer. It's also a natural diuretic, which means it helps us to get rid of water, which can also in turn then help to keep blood pressure moderated. So that's a good thing. And it's also been found to be a pretty good brain food. It's got substances, it's got nutrients in it that help fight some of those things that lead to mental decline. So all that in one little spear of asparagus. It's not going to cure all ills, but it certainly is a good addition to a healthy diet. How many of you do really, really love asparagus? Is there anybody here who just came to try to be convinced to eat asparagus? Or maybe eat more of it? Or maybe just prepare it different ways? Yeah. So, you know, an asparagus is certainly something that is good just by itself with a little bit of butter. So there are three basic types of asparagus, and green asparagus is by far the most common and the most commonly grown. I think something like 98% of the asparagus grown in California is of the green variety. So what I'd like to know by show of hands, or you can unmute yourself and tell me your experience, is if you've eaten purple asparagus or you've eaten white asparagus. Either of those? How about
I've
purple?
had white before, yeah.
You have white. Okay, so tell me about your experience with white asparagus. How did it taste to you?
Oh, it tasted awesome, almost like the green almost. I mean, a little more, I don't know, a little more heavier maybe, but it tasted really good. I didn't know there was purple out there though. I didn't know about the purple.
Yeah, there's
I
purple.
never knew it.
I've had white. It's very popular in France and they cook it amazing. I don't remember how it was cooked, but it was so good.
You knew my question because I was just going to ask you, do you remember how it was prepared? So that's okay, because we'll talk about that a little bit more later. So green asparagus is the most common. Purple is another cultivar of asparagus, and so it is a type of asparagus. And the ingredient or the substance that makes it purple is this anthocyanin. It's also what makes blueberries blue and some of the other berries and vegetables that we know of that are colored like that, the color they are. It's a powerful antioxidant. When you do cook purple asparagus, it's kind of like what happens when you cook, if you've ever cooked purple green beans. They start to lose that color. They don't stay that vibrant purple. More's the pity, but that's what happens. But they are very high in that nutrient, and that's a good thing. And then white asparagus isn't really a cultivar. It's white because it doesn't get access to sunlight. It's either buried or it is covered. And so that stops photosynthesis from happening, and you get white asparagus. So I wanted to just show you this. This is a small grower harvesting and cooking white asparagus. This is a chef. Now I want you to know that on the other side of this, there is asparagus that's cultivated in farms in a much different method. But let's just look at the home gardener kind of method for growing white asparagus.
Hey, Jeb, I have
You have a question?
I do. I was going to wait for this. They say that vegetables you're supposed to eat like the colors of the rainbow for healthier eating. Does the white asparagus, is it just as healthy as the green, or is it got less nutrients because it doesn't have that photosynthesis?
You know, I did not look this up, but I follow your question there, and I think that my guess on that, and we should look that up. My guess on that is that it's not quite the same. Doesn't have the same kind of nutrients. So I'll check into that. And
Okay.
actually, what I'll do, I think
Thanks.
I'll into that and add it in the notes after the class, which I forgot to mention to you all, but I think you know this, that after the class, I will send you an email with all the recipes that we look at today. So I will also do that, and then I'll update my notes too to reflect that for next class time. Thanks for that question, Dee.
Thank you.
Sandra, you have a question?
Yeah, the canned asparagus, the white, does it taste kind of like the regular? What's the difference? Because I've seen the white in the can and I've always wanted to try it, but just kind of like, I don't know if it's going to taste good or too soft or.
Anybody want to weigh in on their experience with canned asparagus, first of all? Kathy's shaking her head no.
I've only had the green asparagus in the can, and what I found is it's usually very soft.
Okay, thanks.
Because of the way that it's processed, it can't help but get soft like that because it doesn't take long to cook asparagus, and it just has to be at a heat temperature for too long for it to stay crisp tender. So my experience is that asparagus in cans has very little resemblance to fresh asparagus, whether it's white or any other color. Okay. Anything else right now? Finish playing the video here. Is the music too loud? Yeah.
I was late. This is Valentine. I was late joining the class.
Yeah.
I haven't eaten asparagus in years and years, and I didn't cook them. But I really ashamed to say I don't even know how you cook. Do you just put them in a little bit of water and put the seasoning and butter, and that's it? And then it's steam cooked? That's the way you cook them?
You know what? That's a great question, and you joined at just the right time because we haven't even gotten there yet, but we will.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for that question. So this is harvesting the white asparagus. Now this is in a raised bed, and here's what he's done. He has come out over the period of 2 weeks, and he has covered those asparagus tips as they started to emerge. He'd just go out and see that a little tip was there. He'd put more soil on it and put more soil on it. That's why he knows they're there. And so he will just keep covering them for about 2 weeks time, and then come out and dig underneath and harvest that. If that were being done commercially, it would be covered with plastic so that it was not exposed to the sun. And you can see that he's peeling this. White asparagus tends to have a little bit tougher outside for some reason. And so he is peeling it, and that's the way that it will go into the cook pot. And in this case, he's doing a little boiling of the asparagus, which is a way to do it, but not too long because you want them to be kind of crisp tender. Okay. So that's a little bit on white asparagus. And a little bit about growing, so you have a visual. It is a perennial plant. Once you plant it, you've got it for like 20 years if you can get it established. You can plant it by seeds or crowns. Crowns are the plants that are further along, so it makes sense to use the crowns, and this is a crown. So the crown has these little buds on it that become the shoots, the asparagus shoots that we eat. And they just spread these roots, and the plants just spread. They need to be trenched in about 6 to 8 inches and planted in an area that gets full sun, about a foot apart. And you can see how the roots are spread. And there are different ways that people plant asparagus. Some plant them more shallowly, some more deeply. And if you plant them more shallowly, you'll get smaller spears, but you'll get them faster, and vice versa. And I think you said nobody here's ever grown asparagus, right? Not ever grown it? It takes about it is harvestable about 3 to 4 weeks in the spring, summer area, maybe early through mid-June. And in the first year, you should not really harvest any of it to eat. In the second year, you can take a few spears. And in the third year, you can harvest all or most of it. And in fact, it grows so fast when it's in season that you might want to go out if you were harvesting it and get it twice a day, because that's how fast it grows. You do cut it at ground level. Here's an asparagus knife. So that's what they look like. But any sharp knife would work. And if you're buying asparagus, you start getting those spindly looking ones at the end of the season. That's when we know to stop harvesting asparagus. And there's those white spears coming up. They're actually up there pretty high. If they wanted to harvest them white, they'd want to cover them up again. So here's some tips for buying and storing asparagus, because lots of people ask about that. How do you know? And there's a couple things that I look for when I have to buy mine at the grocery store and not at the farm market. One is I look to see whether it's standing up and it's in water. Because if it's in water, it's just like a cut flower. You know, you can keep a cut flower going for a while if you keep them in water. Asparagus is the same way. If it's laying on the table there, you don't know how long it's been there, then I start looking at other things. Like I look at the ends. Are they really hard and tough and dried out? They've probably, the whole thing's probably starting to dry. I'm going to stop my share here for a second. We're going to look for tightly closed tips and a smooth texture on the stem. This is not a smooth texture. This is when they're starting to dry out. They get lines up and down, and they don't have reasonably, they get dull looking. They're dull looking. That's the way that I think of it. And they are also very firm if you're getting them fresh. So let me stop this share for a second and show you my asparagus here. This is this is asparagus that I've had in my refrigerator for a while. It's starting to get a little bit of those lines in. So that's, I have to use this faster. Timing these classes sometimes and buying asparagus is hard. So this one is a beautiful pack of asparagus. Notice how close the tips are. They're not fanned out compared to this one that's starting to fray a little bit. Can you see that? It's starting to dry up a bit. It's just not as nice. So I'll probably cut these up and use them in a certain dish that makes it less necessary. And I still, give me 1 second here. I see Max is asking me to make him co-host, and I think I forgot to do that. I'm sorry, Max. Okay, there we go. Okay. So you can see how I have been storing mine in a mason jar with a little bit of water. And when the water starts to get cloudy like this one's starting to get, I have to dump that and refresh it. So anybody have a different way that they like to store asparagus that you found works? Is that the way that you store it?
I never knew about storing it that way. I never have. So thank you. It's one tip I will start using.
Yeah.
I got interrupted. Could you repeat what you had said? I'm sorry.
I never knew you could store it that way.
No, I mean.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
No,
How do you store it?
I just ask if anybody had a different way of storing it. I store mine in the jar with the water in it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I missed this, but do you snap the tips off, not the tips, but the bottoms off before you put it in the jar of water?
If they look dry. If they look dry to me, then I do. But honestly, if they're dry, chances are that you really have to cut off. Yeah, see if they are still able to wick water. Again, it's kind of like flowers.
Yeah.
At some point, they don't really, it doesn't help. But yeah, if you buy them in water, then it's going to be a good idea to keep them in water, and they should stay longer. Yep.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. So I'm going to screen share again so we can go back to where we were. And preparing and cooking asparagus in a zillion ways. Checking my time. What we can do with asparagus is, well, so much. You can blanch it, which means you throw it into boiling water for about 3 or 4 minutes and then plunge it into ice water, and it will chill it down and keep it crisp, tender. And you can keep it in the refrigerator that way for several days and use it just to throw into salads. or into additional stir fries. You would only have to heat them up then because they're essentially ready to eat. So blanching is a good way to keep your asparagus and keep some on hand to use in a variety of different recipes. You can pan steam it, which means just putting it into a frying pan where the bottom of the pan is covered with water, that's all, and turning it on. It only takes about 4 or 5 minutes for that to get finished. You can grill it like is shown here on a grill. Now this is in a frying pan, but you could thread it through on those sticks, cover it or rub it in oil and salt and pepper, whatever herbs or spices you like, and then put it on your grill and turn it, keep turning it, but it only takes 3 or 4 minutes to roast asparagus on the grill. You can use it in stir fries, and you can use it in roasting in the oven. So there are a number of ways that you can cook asparagus, and all of it takes not very long. The roasting maybe takes 12 minutes or so. That might be one of the longer ways, but not very long. And it does depend really on the thickness of your asparagus. Some people have said to me, well, I don't really like these thick pieces of asparagus. And I actually do. I was taught also to get the skinny kind, but I think what happened was that getting these big fat kind, if you're getting them when they're all dried out and old, you know, in the grocery store, then they don't taste so good. But when you get these freshly picked, they're delicious.
Excuse me.
Yes, go ahead, Loretta.
Okay, what would you put on it to roast it in the oven? Like, is it butter or, what would you put on it?
I would use oil. I would use some kind of an oil like an avocado or an extra virgin olive oil.
Olive
Little
oil.
salt, pepper, garlic.
Okay.
That's all you need.
Okay.
Yep.
No butter or nothing like that. Just the olive oil.
Butter I would do later if you wanted to put a little bit on at the end because you don't want to burn it.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Okay, so I want to show you a recipe that I really like here. These are some appetizers that really are, this is going to be my lunch today. I want you to know I love this and I'm so glad to be able to show you how to do it. And they're really elegant for parties or for serving, and they're so easy to make. This is another idea that is similar in that you're bundling your asparagus in prosciutto and you're baking it in the oven. So here we're using phyllo dough, and I'm going to stop my share and just get into that right now. And I'm going to do something kind of fun today or different for me, and that is going to try to share a different camera with you so that you can see what I'm doing. But before I do that, I want to introduce you to the whole phyllo dough bit, phyllo dough. How many of you use phyllo? Okay, so some of you do, some of you don't. The phyllo dough, I didn't get this out of the freezer because I didn't want it to fall. Usually comes in a carton, a long carton, and it has 2 of these logs in it. Mine froze a little crookedly, so it's bent, but 2 of these with many sheets in there. And the nice thing about it is that you can, if you take care of it, you can keep it, you can refreeze it. So what I have done from the last class is I already prepared some of my sheets. So what do I mean by that? The sheets are usually 9 by 13 or somewhere along those lines. And I cut mine straight down in half vertically. So cut it in half vertically. And then what I did to keep it in the refrigerator was wrapped it back up in the paper that it was in. And I wrapped it then in kind of a damp towel and then put that in a bag, plastic bag, and I've kept it in the refrigerator. So fingers crossed, I checked it this morning. It looked like it was going to be fine. So now I'm going to change my camera so you can see what I'm doing. I hope. All right. So you can see my phyllo dough. And I'm unwrapping it now. And what I'm going to do is keep my keep my very clean, it's a clean towel. Keep this towel handy because I'm going to keep my dough from drying out. It does dry out very fast, but the good news is that you can, patch this up and it won't be a problem. So even though it's very thinner than paper, if you are careful with it, and even if it tears, you'll still be able to use it. So I am looking for how to pull this apart. It's starting to come. It's dried out a little more than what I would have liked it. Here's the other thing that you can do. No worries about this because it is so thin. If you do realize that you can't get one sheet off at a time, take two. They're really thin. You're not going to be bothered by that. So I did take two just in the interest of time today. If I spent a little more time trying to pry these apart, it would work and I would be able to do that. So let me get another one over here. I want you to see it, but I need a good hand on it.
What are these called again?
This is phyllo dough, P-H-Y-L-L-O. And this one I was able.
Y-L-L-O, dough?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
P-H-Y-L-L-O. And you will get all these recipes. So I was able to get this one off. It did tear here, but you're going to see that it's not going to matter. So I'm just going to take those two for now, going to cover this up and put my towel on top and keep those damp. And that's what you want to do to keep your phyllo from drying out. That's the most important thing. After that, you've got pretty good latitude with it to make it work for you. So here I've got one with 2 sheets. Here's one with 1. And I'm just going to take my melted butter. And what I've learned is that I take it and pat it just across the top of this, just dabbing motions. You don't want to drag it. I tried it this way. That didn't work as well. And I don't want to drag it down. I want to just pat it gently across. You don't have to have all parts of it covered with butter, just enough to give it some butter flavor and help to cook the asparagus a little bit. Oh, I love these things.
Deb,
So-
just for those who don't know, the phyllo dough can be found in the freezer section of your grocery store.
Oh, thanks. That's what I was wondering.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank
Answer my
you
question.
for saying that. Yep, in the freezer section. And it'll keep a long time. You can keep it in the freezer. When you want to use it, what you want to do is take it out the night before and put it in your refrigerator, and it will be thawed by the next day. If you had an unused portion of that, you could roll it back up just like you saw that mine was rolled back up, and you could put it back in the freezer. That would be fine. I left mine in the refrigerator. So what I'm doing here is just sprinkling this with some grated Parmesan cheese. And now I am going to take a look here at my asparagus and see what I want to use. I think I mentioned to you that some of this looked a little better to me than others. So this newer bundle is what I'm going to use. And the way that you can decide here, I've seen a couple of ways to handle this asparagus. You can break it where it snaps naturally and know that you don't have the fibrous end. Some people like to peel these ends and use it anyway, in which case I'd still cut off that bottom end. And another way to do it is to take your knife down through until your knife isn't naturally there. When it finally feels like it's going to be cut easily there, you know that your tip is best to be taken off. So if you've got very fat asparagus, sorry, I'm still getting used to 2 cameras. If you've got really fat asparagus, you might only want to do 1 stem. You could do 2 here. if I was going to be picking for this particular recipe, I'd probably pick something a little more like this, or this is where your thinner asparagus works pretty nicely. So I'm going to take these two ends, and I'm cutting a little more off just to make them even. I'm going to lay that here. I'm going to start at one end. And you see my phyllo is torn there, but I'm just going to roll right over that tear. Easy peasy. Doesn't matter. Roll it up. If you wanted to experiment, you could go online and find fancy ways to roll these up so that they look like layers. But I'm just going to do it this way now. And now, so I lay it on a baking pan, which does not need to be, it does not need to be sprayed or anything like that. And I'm just going to do the same thing I did in the beginning, which is dab it with some butter and then sprinkle a little Parmesan on it. Now, another thing that you could do just to mix it up is you could take anything that you might have on hand. I happen to have soprassetto, some things out of a charcuterie tray that I had, and I'm going to put some of that in there. Whatever, you could have ham, or you could
I'm
just.
sorry, what is it that you have?
This is things from a charcuterie tray, so soprassetto or prosciutto, the cured Italian kinds of meats you could use in there, or a piece of ham, whatever you would like.
Okay.
And now I'm
I
going
haven't heard of any of the other things that you were just talking about except ham.
yeah. So someday we'll talk about that. But
Thanks.
about charcuterie. So now I'm taking. If anybody was at the cheese board class the other day, I had some Boursin cheese that was on that cheese board, and now I've been trying to use up the cheese that was on that cheese board. So I'm going to take a little of this creamy Boursin cheese. You could use cream cheese, any kind of cheese if you wanted to, and just spread that on top of my ham a little bit, just a little of it, just for a different flavor. And then take my asparagus again, take my asparagus and roll that all up. So you could make several different types of roll-ups if you like. And like I said, these are very forgiving. You roll them up and put them seam side down on this baking pan.
But the dough's not gluten-free, is it?
No, not the phyllo dough. It is.
I got that celiac disease, so I can't.
Oh, I'm sorry. So what the difference or an option here for you is just simply to wrap it in the prosciutto and put it in. Now I'm going to put this in the oven at 375. And I'm going to set the timer for Alexa. Alexa, set the timer for 10 minutes. And we'll check back at the end of the class to see how they look. So I just wanted you to be aware that phyllo dough doesn't have to be scary. I know a lot of us have sometimes felt like that's just too much to fool with because they're always warning you about keeping your dough from drying out and so on. But you know, you get a system down, you get a wet towel, you get set up to begin with, and you get a system, and you're good. I could easily now just keep doing 2 and 2 and 2 and keep going. So that is an appetizer or a lunch, whichever you would prefer. And now I'm going to just check my camera here again and go back to sharing my screen so that you can see a few other recipes. And can you see my slides again? Fantastic. Okay. So cream of asparagus soup is another thing that you might be interested in trying. And what I'm going to show, what I'm going to provide for you is a recipe for cream of asparagus and brie. So I'm not going to go into the detail of that right now, but I might get to that if we have some time at the end. I just want to run you through these different recipes. This is a very interesting stir-fried kind of asparagus dish called absurdly addictive asparagus. And so it is. If you don't want to roll your asparagus up in your prosciutto or your pancetta, these are all like ham or bacon products. Pancetta is like a bacon. You can use this pancetta in a frying pan and saute it with your asparagus. So this is going to be pancetta, leeks, a little garlic, a little lemon and orange zest. And what I think is killer in this recipe are the pine nuts. So they're delicious, toasted and stirred in with the dish at the end. So let's just take a look at this instruction. This couldn't be easier, except if you would just steam your asparagus or lightly pan steam it and have a little bit of butter on it, which is always a great way to eat asparagus. So in this one, you're going to saute the pancetta, and then, so the pancetta has a little bit of fat in it, but you're cooking it without any additional fat until it gets a little brown and crispy. And then you add a tablespoon of butter and add the asparagus and the leek, which you've cut into small dices, and you saute it until the asparagus is crisp tender. It only takes about 3 or 4 minutes. And then add garlic, lemon, and orange zest, the pine nuts, little parsley, and saute it for a minute more. And then season it to your taste, and that's that recipe. So that's is really kind of addictive. I agree. And I do have all these recipes on a PDF this time, so I'm not sending you links to websites. I have compiled them all in one document. How many of you make quiche now? Okay. Anybody make?
Let me ask you, when you send us these recipes, are they going to be in an email? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I'm going to attach them. Thank you. I sling around that word PDF.
Yes.
PDF is a document that
a PDF file. I understand.
PDF file. So I'm going to attach it to the email. Oftentimes I've been giving you emails that have links to websites to get to the recipe. This time I'm doing a document that you can just open and you can save it if you want, print it out.
Oh, thank you so much, because I've got a bunch of asparagus to use.
Okay, these are
fresh.
Favorite recipes. So some of you make an asparagus quiche now. Do you make asparagus quiche? Anybody? Okay, so what do you put in your asparagus quiche, Kathy?
Everything but the kitchen sink. Now, whatever I find in my refrigerator, I always like a lot of onion. I keep peppers, the sweet, the orange, the yellow, the red peppers, a lot of asparagus, and then I use Mrs. Dash as my spice.
Okay, that's a good start off with a quiche. And I love that. Everything but the kitchen sink. What
flavor of Mrs. Dash? There's different Mrs. Dashes.
I use the original, but I also have the I think it's herb and garlic. I mean, just whatever you like for your spices. Salt makes me blow up like a sausage.
I do.
So that's why I stick with Mrs. Dash.
Yeah, and that they are very flavorful herb.
I like the herb and garlic myself.
Yeah. So when you make a quiche, I think that one of the things to test or experiment with is the ratio of eggs to milk, or half and half. So what I have done is I'm sending you this recipe, but it's been modified a little bit for a 9-inch pan. I was experimenting and finding that this ratio works pretty well. I use usually a half cup of milk or cream, or half and half, to an egg. So that's generally the ratio that I use. If you're using a larger pan, then larger pan, you can do this 4 eggs. And this says a cup and a half of half and half, but I might use 2 cups. So I did send you a slightly varied recipe, but you could try this one as well. And this one has a dash of nutmeg in. And I will just call your attention to that. If you have not ever used nutmeg in a quiche, it really is a great flavor enhancer. Mary, I see you shaking your head. Do you use nutmeg in your quiche?
Yes, I actually microplane nutmeg seed.
Oh, nice, nice.
I like it fresh.
Yes, that's a really great way to do it. You're inspiring me to do that. So this uses about a half to a 3/4 of a pound of asparagus. You can put mushrooms in here, a few green onions, and then you want to blind bake your pie shell, which means that you give it a head start to have it partially done before you put filling in. So let's take a look at the recipe here. You boil that asparagus for about 5 minutes or just till it's tender. Don't allow it, keep testing it, don't allow it to overcook. And then saute your mushrooms a little bit and your green onions. Preheat your oven to 375 and then put your pastry in the oven for about 8 minutes. So that's about a good amount of time to pre-bake it. We won't get into all the details of blind baking, but if you poke holes in the bottom and you put a piece of parchment paper in there with some weights, you can avoid the pie dough shrinking and also blowing up, puffing up. So that's something that we can talk more about in a pastry class someday. And then just put your vegetables all on the bottom of the pie pastry and whisk together the eggs and the milk, or half and half, whatever you're using, and the nutmeg, and pour it over the vegetables and bake it for maybe 45 to 55 minutes, but you really want to keep an eye on it. You don't want to overcook it. You can really overcook your eggs. Anybody have any tips for not overcooking your quiche? What I have seen here are two things. Can you insert a butter knife in the center that comes out clean is a way of knowing if it's done, but also if it's just slightly jiggly, it's okay because it'll cook a little bit more out of the oven. So you're looking for that very light custardy kind of end product as opposed to something that is going to be dense and chewy. Any thoughts or questions? I can smell these. I can smell the appetizers in the oven with that soprassetto cooking. Okay, here's one. Looking at our time, it's 12:52. So this will have to be the last one that we talk about, but do know that I'm providing you the recipes for everything. I like this one because it is so simple and I think really elegant. I really like asparagus just steamed with butter on it. And sometimes you want to have it just a little bit different. So for me, this balsamic brown butter sauce is the trick. Alexa, timer off. So
There are no timers set.
Okay then. Alexa's trying to mess with me today. Okay, so this calls for 2 pounds of asparagus. Obviously, you can adjust this accordingly and cut back on your amounts. You could also reheat this. If you wanted to do the brown butter, you could probably cool it off and reheat it a little bit in the microwave. You don't want to burn it, but the essential brown butter recipe is 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter, 2 teaspoons of soy sauce, and a teaspoon of balsamic. So really what you're doing is melting that butter and letting it get just slightly brown. So swirl it around, let it get golden brown, don't let it burn, and then remove it from the heat, stir in the soy sauce and the balsamic vinegar, and then drizzle it over the asparagus. I promise you, if you do like, I mean, you have to like balsamic and soy sauce, but if you do, it's delicious on the asparagus. So there we go. That's our day on asparagus, our hour on asparagus. I'm going to check our appetizer.
while you're doing that, I have a suggestion for the stems that you've snapped off.
Yes.
I keep them in the freezer along with, celery discards, onion discards, mushroom stems, and then I will cook them all together to make a vegetable broth.
Yep. And that's exactly, thank you for saying that. Let's check this out. We talk about this in the soups from scratch class. This is my bag of scraps, right, Mary? Is this what yours looks like? Probably better than mine looks. But yeah, I can put those right in there. That's a very good point. And I think I'll just do that right now. Now, what I do say about this is that asparagus broth is dependent upon, or the taste of asparagus in vegetable broth can be overpowering. So be careful not to overuse it and make sure you like the taste of it in a broth. It's perfectly great, especially if you're going to be making a cream of asparagus soup. What could be better? So thank you for that. That's a very good addition. Good point. So we covered quite a bit today. Got some background information on asparagus and how to cook it. Lots of recipe ideas coming in that PDF. And I'd be really interested to know if you try these recipes, or if you have recipes that you want to send forward. You can email me at debtheguide@getsetup.io. I'll put that in the email as well. And any ideas that you might have for other classes. I would also love to have you come on a class. I've got Pam coming in tomorrow. She's going to co-host with me and show us all about baking scones. And Pam says, you know, I'm not a professional baker. I'm just somebody who really has a passion for making scones. And that's exactly what we want. We're not talking about having to be professional here. We're talking about bringing in your favorites, talking about the tips and the tricks that you've learned from making them, because it cuts our learning curve way down when we can learn from each other, right? We don't have to repeat mistakes from recipes that we might have been trying for the first time. So I would love to know if you'd be interested in co-hosting with me on something that you're pretty passionate about. We can make that super easy. Come to Pam's class tomorrow. You'll see how easy that is. And if you have photos of your kitchen creations, we use those all the time. So it would be so much fun. And Scott Sleek is our photography instructor at Get Set Up. And he does a class tomorrow. He has one going, as a matter of fact, on Google Photos and lots of taking photos of food and taking photos with your iPhone or your Android. And it's so much fun to take pictures of your food. So
I've taken his class. It's actually very excellent.
Which one did you take?
The one you just mentioned.
What I just mentioned? Okay. Well, good. So Scott's really a lot of fun. And we have had contests, and you'd be amazed at the things that people have turned in. So here, let me finish up here on my slides. Next classes, I have great spring meals in 30 minutes and soups from scratch later on today. I also have strawberry spotlight coming up later in the week. And I might include one dessert recipe. That's it. I'm going to do other things with strawberries because I hope to have a favorite strawberry dessert class coming up with your favorite strawberry desserts. So if you've got some strawberry desserts that are just to die for, send me your recipe. And I'm really looking for some co-hosts on that class too. And I have a Mexican fiesta class too. So you'll get the email from me with the attachment. At that time, I'll send you some ideas for classes. You can schedule from there or from here. And you can also give me feedback. Please do. This is a great session and rate me and give me any tips. And also invite friends when you go to schedule. Somebody that is in the classes quite a bit is Alberta. You probably know her. She's in, I think she's in, oh, now I want to say Santa Fe. Well, wherever she is, she's visiting a friend now and helping her with Zoom, and she's going to bring her to class. So it's great to invite a friend to class and to connect, Get Set Up to any of your friends or community organizations that could benefit. And we all benefit from that. So I'm going to stop my share now and show you. How beautiful. Easy, beautiful. The asparagus is done. I'll probably put the one with the ham in it for a little bit longer. They're not quite as done as they might be. And I think that your guests would be, or your family, or you will be delighted with the results. And I'm going to just check the chat. Anybody have other questions or thoughts? Sandra says it looks delicious.
It does.
It
And
sure
thank you
does.
for your time and your ideas.
You're very welcome. I'm so happy that you came today. It was a lot of fun. And I look forward to seeing you in more classes. Come to Pam's class tomorrow and learn about scones.
I was
love
thinking
it.
too
Really
that
fun.
you could wrap the prosciutto in that with the phyllo dough and make like this a heartier sandwich as opposed to an appetizer.
You bet. Absolutely. Well, that's kind of the idea with putting that soprassetto in there. Yeah, the prosciutto. The sky's kind of the limit with that. That's
Well,
the creativity of it all. You can really make it more bulky, can't you? Make it more like a sandwich. And you know what I like about these is that they are very much finger food. They're very sturdy. Now they're hot, so you can cut them with a knife and fork, or you can serve these easily at room temperature too. They do not have to be hot, and they stay crispy.
this is also perfect timing. The supermarket that I'm going to right now has asparagus on sale
Yeah,
this week.
because it's in
So-
season, so it's really plentiful.
Yep.
That's the idea, you know, to have these seasonal spotlight on seasonal ingredients just when they're in, and you can get them and they're abundant, and you need to use them up because you only get them like that for a certain period of time. So good. I'm glad that it was helpful and timely for you. Anyone else have anything they want to say before we say goodbye?
Just a quick
It
question.
was
Deb.
a wonderful class.
Uh,
Wonderful class.
oh, thank you, Jackie. Thank
We
you.
have an asparagus meeting every June.
The audio is slowing down. It's slowing down.
I love asparagus.
You love asparagus.
Anyway.
Awesome. I'm having a little hard time hearing you, Jackie, because it's going on with the audio, and so thank you for coming, all of you. Kathy, you had another question. Do you want
Oh,
to?
that's okay. I'm coming to
Thanks for
another
everything.
class.
Okay.
Yeah,
Here,
I've
everyone.
enjoyed the class.
Thank you so much.
I have another class at 1, so I'm gonna go ahead and leave.
All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Have a good one. See you later, Deb.
Bye, Sandra. Good to see you again.
You too. I have a question. Have you gone to any of your classes at Eventbrite yet?
Well, I took one, and it was not one that it was not the right kind that I should.
Oh, okay, okay.
And I had another one I was signed up for Saturday, but then I couldn't make it. My time has just become really crazy, but I keep trying, and I keep
Oh,
looking.
okay.
I don't see as many, so I might not be looking at the right one. If you think of it sometime and you see one that's out there that you attended or really liked, will you send me a link?
Okay, I will.
Okay.
Okay, talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.